This is Eric Rutan of Cannibal Corpse. You are listening to the Scars and Guitars podcast with Andrew McKay Smith.
G'day everybody, and thanks so much for joining me as I have a conversation with the great John Corabi to share with you. Chances are, if you've tuned in, you need no introduction to the man, but just in case you do, he was in Motley Crue, ESP, Union, Rat, the Dead Daisies, and a few others. But by and large, this is a fella that should be known for his tremendous talent as a singer and a songwriter in his own right. Now, the catalyst for the chat is rather exciting. He's coming to Australia. I think this might be the first conversation that I'm sharing with the world with an artist since the pandemic, and we're actually talking a little bit about a tour. So I'll read out some dates just quickly because I know most of you live abroad, not in Australia, so this is going to be relatively meaningless to you, but if you do live in Australia, you can catch him in June of 2022. Thursday the 2nd in Sydney at Crowbar, Wednesday the 8th, Brizzy, I'll be along to that show. At Brightside in the Valley, Thursday the 9th in Melbourne at North Coast Social, Friday the 10th, Adelaide, Enigma Bar, and finally Perth, you get a show on the 11th, which is a Saturday, of course it is, Amplifier. So before we get to the chat, I have handpicked a tune to share with you. Smoke the Sky. I enjoy this one here. It's a heavy tune from the 1994 self-titled Motley Crue album, the best album in the Motley Crue catalogue, let it be said. We'll play that if you've tuned in, you'll hear that if you've tuned in via the podcast. If you're listening and watching on YouTube, we're going to cut to the conversation right now. Let's go.
Reality Okay, there we go.
There he is, live and in the flesh. How are you, mate?
I'm all right. How are you?
Good. You're on the road, are you? From the looks of things.
Yeah, I'm okay. You know, I'm just hanging out, getting ready to pack. I'm heading up to Nashville tomorrow and a couple shows, and then I'm getting on a plane and heading to Australia.
Mate, you are indeed. You are indeed. So if things been as busy as you could have expected and potentially even hoped after all of the COVID lockdowns and all of that bullshit started to ebb away?
To be honest with you, I'm still not 100% back to work. I'm glad it's starting to pick up. But I kept pretty busy. I took some Pro Tools classes, learned how to actually record myself. Obviously all the recording studios and everybody was quarantining, so nothing was getting done. I wrote the book, and then I just slowly, I'm still a beginner at it, even still now today. I don't know what I'm doing fully, but, just recording music at a snail's pace. Mm-hmm. And, doing my thing, man, just trying to keep busy like everybody else,
Yeah, it's a smart move, mate. At least you haven't spent that idle time drinking or fucking around in a way that isn't so meaningful, but learning how to use all of the tools that you have to use anyway to produce what you're doing, mate, that's a smart thing to do.
Well, yeah, I'm trying, but again, I'm only creatively productive between 3:00 and 3:15, and then the rest of the time I fuck around and drink.
Well, mate, that sounds like you got a good balance there at least.
Yeah, you have to balance.
Indeed, yeah. Well, it was cool to hear you were coming down. You know we love you down here. You and I have had a really good chat before, actually. I was listening back to it last night. We spoke about a whole bunch of things, but I try to ask some different questions for the audience. My audience is I host a podcast series and, the video side of things and all the rest of it. But look, you are bringing your I believe it's a solo and acoustic songs and stories to Australia, and the bit about that. I mean, your music's so well known amongst rock and heavy metal. The connoisseur, if you like, you tend to attract the connoisseur. But I'm really curious about the story side of things. So, are you recounting some of the tales from your biography?
Maybe some, but in all honesty, it's like when I first started doing, because I did an acoustic record. God, man, it's been like 10 years now. And when I did the record, I started going out doing acoustic things, which I had never really done before. And so I was sitting there and I'm looking at everything at the time. At that point, I hadn't done anything with the Daisies yet. But I started looking at, the Scream, I need like 3 or 4 songs from that. And I need like 3 or 4 songs from the Motley and then all the Union stuff and like some covers. And, so I was doing all this stuff and I was doing like 23, 25 songs. Mm-hmm. And then at the end of the night, I would sit down either at the bar or at the merch table or whatever, and I'd hang out with the fans and I found myself answering these questions like, hey, man, what's Father, Mother, Son? What's that about? Or, like Hooligan's Holiday, like, what exactly does that mean? So I kind of had this weird revelation where I went, maybe it's not about playing 25 songs. Maybe it's about playing 15 and kind of giving them a little backstory on the song. And then just my personality, like I'm a goofball, so I try to lighten the mood and so like I'll tell some stories, there's even some things like where I have to do like an open tuning. And instead of having it like 2 minutes of like dead silence, I just keep talking and I tell like these funny little anecdotes or jokes or whatever it may be. And to be honest with you, like once I started doing that, where I was telling the stories and kind of making it more personal, it really kind of started taking off, and people were really kind of just digging the whole thing. So I'm looking forward to it. There really is no rhyme or reason when I do things. I don't even write up a set list. I just kind of wing it.
Oh,
and
awesome. Yeah, killer.
Somebody may yell October Morning Wind, and I'll go, you know what? I haven't played that in a while, but fuck it. I'll try it. Let's go. Mm. And and there's been a few times where I started playing a song and I got maybe halfway through it and I fucked it up royally. And I went, sorry, that's all you're getting. And everybody just laughs about it. It's like, it's just really loose and it's fun. And there's, again, no rhyme or reason to anything. It's just about being intimate, one-on-one. And I've even had some fans yell up a question and I'll answer it.
That's awesome. Then I love it.
Becomes a storyteller. It would be like sitting around a campfire just with a couple hundred friends and hanging out.
But isn't it a lovely thing that you've arrived at a point in your career where people just are happy to take you at face value and for who you are?
Yeah. And, that's part of the reason why I do it. You know what I mean? Like, I know somebody said to me about the acoustic shows yesterday. I've been doing interviews for, because I'm coming down there. Mm. And somebody asked me yesterday, like, a bit about the acoustic show. And then they asked me what the thread was or the theme through the book. And like, it's just, I've never understood, but I have to say I'm guilty of it as well. Like, if Paul McCartney walked into this room right now, I would shit a brick and I would literally just sit there and fan a teenage schoolgirl asking him a million questions. So I get that part. And, but I've never looked at myself in that sort of, in that sort of manner. Do you know what I mean? And so the book and the acoustic shows, it's just like, guys, like, I'm just like you guys. Like, I love music. I just want to hang out. I want to play. I want to have some fun. And, at the end of the day, I'm kind of just like you guys, when I fans, you know what I mean? Like, so yeah, I do like the intimacy of having an acoustic show. There's nothing to hide behind. And it's like, here I am. Yeah. What you see is, let's do this. So.
Yeah, there's been a few people come over and do that stuff, even some local fellas. I know Johnny Toogood's from New Zealand, but he lives in Australia these days. Johnny Toogood from Shehad. He did it, and it was awesome. I think, I was there with a bunch of mates, and a couple of us started yelling out for Ace of Spades, and just as a joke, and he did it. And I mean, that's the beauty of it, isn't it? That's the intimacy. You can be nimble and you can give fans something which is very much in the moment. I know all these people hold up their bloody phones these days, but you know what? To the fans, I'd say put your fucking phones down for a moment. Just be in the moment and get something at a cellular level that you're not going to get any other point in time.
Yeah, and it's weird too. I think, to be honest, another local guy down there that's brilliant at the acoustic thing, I'm a huge fan, is John Stevens.
Awesome.
Love him or hate him. You know what I mean? I don't know what his situation is with a lot of people down there, but I love John's voice. I love his music, and like I've seen a couple of videos of him. He's accompanied by somebody else on an acoustic guitar, but he just sits there and he tells some quick stories and. And he does his thing, and I'm like, fuck, this is brilliant. It's great. And he's got the perfect voice for that type of thing. So I'm a huge fan of that guy. And actually, I just reached out to him. I said, hey, I'm going to be in Australia for a bit. I'd love to do some writing for my next solo record. So hopefully, we'll make some time and hopefully we can make something work out.
Yeah, no, he's a legend. He's beloved by Australian audiences. People like, Noiseworks. I've played covers, you see, and I've played Noiseworks songs a few times, and mate, they always just, people stop what they're doing. And that song, Take Me Back, if you've heard that song, that big rock number from the 80s, that goes off. That gets a huge pop. But I'm glad you're trying to reach out to him for writing.
I'm a huge fan of John's. Huge fan of Jimmy Barnes. I think his voice is insane as well.
Yeah.
Those guys are, some guys that I look up to and I respect, you know what I mean? Obviously the AC/DCs and Rick Springfield and, Keith Urban, and I mean, the list goes on, but, big fan of your scene down there as well.
Yeah, well, you're almost a part of it. I mean, I know that the touring has picked up in recent years, but do you feel as though, I understand you've got a good relationship with Silver Tiger and with John, and that helps, there's no doubt, but you've got to have an audience for that to actually bear fruit. But do you feel like as though in the last 5 to 6 years or so, Australian audiences in particular have become particularly endearing?
No, I think they've kind of always have been. I mean, somebody just sent me a thing. Like, I just saw a video, might have been on YouTube, and there was a concert that I did down there, and I forget I think it might have been Sydney, Marquee Club.
Yeah, I've played there. That's about 20 years ago, 15 years ago.
Okay, so I played there with ESP, which was basically a cover band. We just did a whole set of music that we grew up listening to.
Yeah.
And I saw the video. Again, I hadn't seen it in forever. And it just kind of went, holy shit, like, it's fucking packed in this club. Like, it was packed. I also came down. There was another time that I came down with, I was there with Rat. We had great shows.
Yeah.
I was, I can't remember all the cities. I think we only did maybe 3 shows, but I came down with Eric Dover, Eric Brittingham, and Troy Patrick Farrell, and we played there. What's that place right in Sydney?
The Harbourside Brasserie.
The what now?
The Harbourside Brasserie.
No, it was
like a Frankie. Was it recently or back in the day?
No, Frankie's. It was probably 8 or 10 years ago, but it was like on the main. Is it the Metro or no?
It could be. Yeah, I'm familiar enough with Sydney to know, but look, it's, my memories of Sydney go back sort of beyond 20 years ago. Yeah. But yeah, the Metro. Yeah,
we came down and we played. We played there and walked on stage, and it was packed. And then they announced me, and I wound up doing. We played Hooligan's Holiday, and I thought that place was going to implode. It was vanity. So Australia has always been really, really cool to me, and it's unfortunate that it's like, I mean, it's mine is like, what do? You go to Mars and then make a left. It's like, yeah. You guys are way out there. And it's unfortunate because I even said to a guy yesterday, I would love nothing more than, once I get my band going, I would love nothing more than to be able to pencil Australia into my calendar once a year and just come down and play everywhere. Perth, like I'm actually going to Perth.
Nice. For
the first time on this run. I don't think I played there. I did play with the Daisies. But that's, I think, the only show that I've ever done in Perth was with. So I'm looking forward to it. You know what I mean?
You mentioned the Daisies there. David Lowy, look, he's in Australia. I think he's better known for being an aviation enthusiast. He's actually curating a museum. He's actually, I think he's an Order of Australia medal winner too, or recipient, I should say. So he's a great Australian in a lot of ways. And also his father is the fellow that backed the Socceroos and the A-League, our soccer league here, which is a bit like the professional soccer league. I can't remember what it's called in the States. Same sort of deal. But I know you're no longer in the Daisies, but barely anybody talks about him. Okay, but he is a rock and roll guy at heart. That seems to be his guiding force, if you like, especially, I mean, he looks the part, the whole thing. But what's your perspective on David after working with him?
You know what? I said this in an interview. One of the things that used to like piss me off beyond belief is when I would see these comments online and they would say things like, oh, whatever with the Dead Daisies, it's just some fucking billionaires like midlife crisis or, all this shit. And the thing that amazed me about David, first of all, if you really dive into it and you look up his father's history, it's like a fucking movie. Like the shit that man endured in his youth, and then came to Australia and started this empire with a fucking fruit stand at a farmer's market, and built this empire through hard work, smart moves. His sons got involved. David's always been a rocker. And the thing that pissed me off about that is I saw a man that would literally be at sound check on time, walk on stage. I mean, he was maniacally insane about rehearsing his parts. And he'll be the first to admit, is he Eddie Van Halen? No. But David's a good guitar player. He's a solid guitar player. And he's not some billionaire that's hired a bunch of guys to write music for him. The guy that's sitting in the room with the musicians and he's writing songs with them. And that's the difference. And then I the thing that I respect beyond belief about David is that he's always had this knack of being able to compartmentalize, like the business and the creative. And like I said, he would get up, he would handle business in the morning. He would come down, he would have his coffee and his eggs, and then he would go back up and he would do business. And then he would practice his guitar. And then we would sound check. And then we would do the meet and greets. And we'd do all that stuff, do the show. And then he would come back to the bar. And him and I would sit most nights. And he would have his Negroni. And I would have a whiskey. And we would sit and bullshit for a few minutes. And then he would go up to his room, nap for maybe 2 hours, 3 hours. He was up at 4 or 5 o'clock in the morning. He was calling Japan, making all these business calls happen. And then he would go back to bed for a few more hours and then repeat. And I was like, that's just genius to me. Yeah. I respect that man so much for his work ethic and the fact that he's able, like, dude, he's kind of, and he's kind of living the life, dude. Like he's got a brain that is actually built for finance and numbers. And so he's really good at what he does during the day. And he's really good at what he does at night. And it's like, I can't respect that guy. You cannot sit there and not tip your hat to somebody like that. And one of the things too, I told people, I go, man, you don't realize it, but he does write the songs. For example, the song, just for an example, Long Way to Go. That bam, 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 that riff, that's David's riff. He wrote that riff and brought it to us. And then we sat down in a room with him. We developed it, put it into a song thing. Then I went and wrote lyrics and did my thing. And, but so that's the thing. He's contributing. He's not saying, hey, here's $1 million. Go write me a fucking record. You know what I mean? So that was never the case. So that's what used to annoy me about the slags on David Lowy. And I got nothing but love and respect for that dude.
Yeah, I couldn't help but feel as though even the name of the group, the Dead Daisies. Now, it's like this everywhere, but it's especially like this in Australia. Something called the tall poppy syndrome happens to sports people, politicians, titans of industry, such as people in the Lowy family. But they get a bit. People in Australia think, oh, you're getting a bit too big for your boots, mate. We're just going to cut it down. So they cut down the tall poppy, right? The Dead Daisy, hey, didn't even get a chance to spring up. Do you know what I'm saying? So I feel like as though there's a bit of an inside joke there.
I wasn't there when they put the name together. Obviously, if you know the history, David and John Stevens actually started the band. And from what I was told, the name actually came because I guess apparently John had some medical issues back in whenever they started this band. It was 2013 or 14 or something like that, whatever. He had some heart issues, and his doctor basically said, okay, here's the deal, dude. You need to cut back on this. You need to cut back on that. You need to stop doing this. You know what? If you don't take care of yourself, you're going to be in the ground, basically pushing up the daisies, which is that, and somehow it got twisted into the Dead Daisies, due to whatever John was going through at the time. But again, David's done a brilliant job he hired a great marketing team and put a great marketing team together. He's got a great band. Everybody contributes. Everybody does their thing, and they just get out there and they do it first class the whole way. So, and you complain about somebody like that. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, no, I get what you're saying. It's always good to get what I call primary research and ask people who are then there and there in the moment, and you understand what was going on. But I think there's growing understanding, if you like, of David's contribution to rock and heavy metal. As I say, Australian Story, who I personally don't think they did such a great job with the Bon Scott thing that came out recently. They focused on on aspects of his life that were less controversial, let's face it. And I think what they did with David is when they did one with either the Lowy family or with David, and they didn't focus enough at all on the rock and roll.
Talking about a video or a documentary or something? Or
documentary, yeah, you can check it. Just type in Australian Story Bon Scott or Australian Story Lowy, David Lowy.
Okay.
Just Google. Yeah, it's easy to find. It'll be syndicated in the US because I've already spoken. Who did I speak to the other day? And they just watched it. Matt Nardo from Leviathan Project. I had a chat to him, and he was saying, he just watched it last night. So you know how it is these days, mate. If it comes out here, it'll be out there at the same time. But the ABC, mate, they're not exactly known for telling the truth. Believe me, they focus on narrative rather than fact. And it's one of those things. But look, I want to talk about Union for a bit, if that's okay, because I'm on Deco's distribution list, talking to the guys in Chips to PR. The people who are around the Deco record label in terms of sending out promos and the like. And look, from my perception is they seem to have done a killer job with the Union re-releases, the vinyl, which sold out before they were even bloody available. So were you involved in that?
A little bit. I mean, obviously, we all got together and we signed all the flats and things that they put in the record, and I've kind of figured out the best thing to do when it comes to doing artwork and different things like that. And I even told one of the guys that was involved in with Deco, I said, you know what, honestly, don't even ask us because we're not going to agree on anything. Do the artwork and send us the final yes or no. That's all you need to worry about is the final yes or no from all of us, because I see things one way, Bruce sees things a different way, Brent sees things a third way, and Jamie, when you can find him, is going to see it a fourth way. So I said, just do what you do. Send us a copy of it when it's done, and we'll either give you a thumbs up or thumbs down. And that's what they did. You know what I mean? So I think they did a great job. And as usual, this is my MO. I join bands, I do records. When I'm in the band, nobody gives a shit. And then it seems like 10 years later, 15, 20 years later, everybody goes, "Oh man, what a great band!" You know. So
True.
That's just kind of my MO. But there's been this resurgence now with anything, everything, Union and the Scream. You know what I mean? It's like all this shit going on. It's like, wait, where were you guys in 91 and 98 and 99? Like, you know what I mean? But I'm just happy the music is out. That's all.
I was around back then. I distinctly recall the Blue Room Australian tour in 98, I think it was, or early 99. And I remember how, because being a musician, back then, if you were into rock and metal, mate, you were about as, you just weren't, you found each other in rehearsal studios. You couldn't just go to a club or what have you. They didn't exist in Australia back in those days. But I remember the buzz that was around my inner circle of musicians when you guys were touring. And I think Kiss had just released Carnival of Souls. So there was that hunger to hear what Bruce had got to do. But of course, there's the Motley Crue thing with you. But what do you recall of the Blue Room Australian tour in 98?
Not much, because I forgot we did that. Mentioned it. But again, I don't ever remember coming to Australia and not having a great time. So, as I said earlier, Australia's just been, even still now, like I'm releasing new music and you do it like digitally through these digital distribution sites, and they always give you the break top cities and the top countries and all that shit. And Australia's consistently in the top 5 every time. You know what I mean? Regardless of what I do. So Australia's always been awesome. And, I remember even talking to my wife, at some point, like before I met her, she went down there for a vacation, and her and a bunch of girlfriends, and she was like, she had never been there before, and she came home, and years later we were talking about Australia, and she goes, "I love that place." She goes, "Everybody just seems happy. Everybody's just like, it's got great weather. All the stuff, like everybody's just happy and positive and upbeat and like all these things." And I can't disagree with that assessment. Do you know what I mean? So you rock.
Thanks. Well, you did too. And look, I spoke to one of your ex-bandmates not too long ago, Jizzy Pearl, and I was surprised. He struck me as a fairly intense individual. Would that be true?
Yep. Jizzy's very, he's a great dude. Jizzy and I got off on the wrong foot. Well, we got off on the right foot when we first met each other. But when I did the Rat thing, there was a point where it was just like a misunderstanding. I was dating one of his ex-girlfriends. So we were kind of like a little, it was a little ginger, when we first started with Rat. But, we talked, we did our thing, and we had some agreements and disagreements. And I think the thing that I love about Jizzy is if he doesn't like something, he'll tell you. And he knows I'm the same way. So I think we respect each other. I love Jizzy's music. He's very creative with his books and different things. And he's a very intense individual. But lighthearted at the same time. Like once you get to know him and give him a couple glasses of wine, he like loosens up a little bit. But he's a great dude, man.
Yeah, I wasn't expecting it. I'm not saying I had a bad interaction with him at all. Far from it. But he's probably one of the most intense people that I've spoken to across 700 interviews. And that's really saying something, given that I've spoken to you before. I've spoken to so many of the leading lights, but he answered every question seriously, didn't fob anything off, was polite. But yeah, it wasn't one of those humorous interviews, if you know what I'm saying, like what we sort of were leading to points where we're exchanging stories or what have you. It was definitely one of those ones where my thing is to have conversations with people, but I got the impression with Jizzy, he really wanted to keep it as an interview, so he wanted to get the facts out there to people.
Yeah, he's very direct. But he does have he's got a really wicked sense of humor as well. It's just, you caught him. Sorry, there's a guy. I don't know if you can see this. He's
nice. Yep, see it.
The county guy's like spraying for mosquitoes.
Yeah.
He's very intense. He can be very intense, but he also has a very wicked sense of humor as well. And he's a hoot to be most times. But obviously, I would think in an interview point of view, he just wants to tell you, like, hey, here's the shows I'm doing, here's the music, and whatever.
Yeah, just get to the point. Yeah. No, yeah. What a
direct point guy.
Yeah. What about a bloke like Bobby Blotzer, of course? Look, I listened to our last conversation, and I know you gave me a lot of insight into the relationship between him and Warren DeMartini, which sounded toxic. But do you remain mates with those people long after you're out of the band?
It's weird. I don't dislike any of them. It's just weird though. Like once you start getting into other things, like I was so focused, and the 4 or 5 years I was in the Daisies, like I didn't have time to breathe, let alone stay in touch with anybody. But Bobby just called me a couple months ago, and we were bullshitting for a minute. And, he kind of told me he didn't like a few things that I said in interviews in reference to the band being, dysfunctional. And he goes, why? He wanted to know why I would say that. And I'm like, dude, you guys couldn't get through a rehearsal without wanting to kill each other. Yeah. I'm going to put that in dysfunctional category. And he laughed about it, whatever. If you ask me a question, I'm going to be truthful. I don't give it I never give an answer to hurt somebody's feelings, throw them under a bus, or offend anybody. But at the bottom line is, you ask me a question, I'm being honest, I'm giving you an honest answer. And, unfortunately, sometimes it comes back and bites me in the ass, but I don't give a shit. Like, I was asked a question, and here's the answer. Like, whatever. I get along with those guys if Warren walked in here right now, we'd sit down and have a Guinness together, maybe jam some guitar. If Bobby walked in here, it would be, insanity, energetic. I would bust his balls. He'd bust my balls. Robbie Crane, I adore. I just talked to Robbie. He actually called me for my birthday a few weeks ago. I like Juan. I never played in the band with Juan, but I've always gotten along with Juan. And Steven, I thought, like a lot of people, including some of the members of the band, didn't necessarily agree with or appreciate some of Steven's quirks or idiosyncrasies. But I was in a band with the guy for a couple years, and I fucking love Steven. He's another one. He's very direct. He is as rock and roll as you get. He hasn't had it easy. And he's still doing his thing. Steven makes no bones about being Steven Piercy, and I respect that. I think one of the biggest things that happened to that band, the thing that kind of off-kiltered the balance in that band, was the death of Robin Crosby.
Yeah, absolutely.
I think Robin was a huge contributor as far as the writing, and I think Robin was like the type of guy that kind of kept everybody in check. And, and because of that, I think at that point, everybody's like everybody started to become vying to be the top dog. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, I do. Yeah, I understand what you're saying. Yeah, my impression is I'm an old Rat fan, and I wasn't a fan when Robin was even. No, I was definitely a fan when he was alive, but I wasn't a fan when he was actually in the band. If that makes sense, when he was sort of on the outer, I suppose is the way to describe it. And the band, this is like mid '90s or what have you. So I don't even know whether there was a band back then. But he struck me as the soul. Okay, and when you lose your soul, the head starts to rule, and it becomes illogical and irrational. And
he was absolutely the heart and soul of Rat. And like a lot of those songs, I mean, there was a few that Juan wrote, but I think, Robin was to Steven what I know this, I don't mean it in this magnitude, but the writing partnership was really kind of Robin and Steven. And when Robin wasn't there, it was like, okay, and now I got to figure out, plan B. And they've just been bickering and fighting ever since. But hopefully at some point, I know Steven's kind of campaigning or championing, like I've read some interviews lately where, Steven's like, if everybody can check their ego at the door, I would love nothing more than Bobby, Warren, Juan, and Steven to get back together again, find a guitar player, and go out and do Rat again. And I think the fans love that.
Well, the second guitarist could only be yourself or Carlos, surely. I mean, I know they've got ring-ins these days, and I mean that term in a polite way. But, I mean, you need a personality up there, someone that people already know in and amongst a crew like that. So hopefully they ask yourself or Carlos to join them if that happens.
Again, I tend to be a person though that's like, okay, I bought that shirt, I wore that shirt, I washed that shirt. So I'm never say never, but I just can't see it happening.
Yeah. Hey, did the producers of The Dirt, did they need your permission to characterize you in that film?
Apparently no, because honestly, I really wish they would have just left me out of the fucking film altogether. But they chose to portray me the way they did. It is what it is. Ultimately, I think the minute that I was in the movie was kind of completely unnecessary, to be honest with you. Like, I just wish they would have bypassed it altogether. And, band breaks up, band goes away, band gets back together again. Pretty much what they did, but they just kind of, I felt the way they portrayed me kind of threw that whole time frame under the bus a little bit. So wasn't happy with it.
Yeah. Look, I studied film, and that script had all of the elements of management by committee. Okay. So it was a compromise. It was a compromise script, in my opinion. Oh, of course, I'm not there, but when things were happening, but I watched that and I got to the end of it and I thought, Jesus Christ, what did I just watch? Okay, because I know the Motley Crue story intimately. I was a fan back in the day. I especially loved your contribution to the group, and I think a lot of people do. So to see you, if I could use the word marginalised like that, and to be used as an instrument, in a plot instrument, as opposed to the contribution that what it was, which was an integral, look, without that album. Here's the thing, okay, and this opinion is shared by many people. This is not just mine alone. The album that you were a part of actually gave the group credibility. I don't know whether it had popularity, sure. It had always been the party bullshit band before you came along. But when you came along and the band actually finally got fucking serious, and a lot of fans were ready for that, but the media, of course, weren't at the time, because the media was just haywire back then, as you know. But do you feel the same way? Do you feel like as though the band finally got serious around the time that you joined?
To be honest with you, I don't. The funny thing of it is I get these fans that, because I guarantee you, part of this interview is going to end up on a website like Blabbermouth or
yeah. Sorry about that. Yeah,
no. It is what it is, and I'm fine with it. I don't give a shit. But the funny thing of it is these fans will sit there and make these comments like, oh my God, dude, fuck, it was 27 years ago. Leave it alone. Why don't you move on? Why don't you get your own life? Why don't you And the odd thing is, like, again, I don't really say to anybody like, hey, you can interview me, but don't ask me about this, or, my life is an open book. I don't care. I'm proud of everything that I've done. I respect everything that I've done. I have no regrets. And, at the end of the day, though, I don't even think about that stuff. Like, and I try to liken my life, like, to like driving a car. I did the Motley thing. I did the Scream. Who knew I was going to get into Motley? I did that. Who knew Vince was going to come back? And I did Union. And who knew that Bruce was going to join Grand Funk Railroad? I was going to get an offer, whatever. Everything happened for whatever the universe's reasons were. It happened. And at the end of the day, like, I feel like if you're in a car and you're moving the car forward, it's kind of important to look forward. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I get it.
If the car is moving forward and you're looking in the rear view mirror or behind you, you're looking in the past, and it's not going to end well because you're not paying attention to what's going on in front of you. So, I mean, again, like, I saw the movie, The Dirt, and I went, oh, man, fuck, like, why did they even put me in it? I think the record that we did was a joint effort. It was 4 guys that got together in a room. I don't know if my attitude, I don't know if it was my guitar playing, I don't know if it was my vocals, I don't know if it was my contributions to lyrics. I don't know what it is. All I know is we all together sat in a room for almost a year, and we just jammed, and we wrote, and we rewrote, and we did all this stuff. And then we sent the stuff to Bob Rock, and he loved it. And he said, let's do this. And then honestly, we got up with Bob Rock and we took everything that we sent him and we stripped it down to its barest form and we started building it again. And now I'm proud of the record. I'm grateful to Motley Crue for actually making that phone call, contrary to popular belief. I have zero bones against anybody in the band. I pretty much talked to just about everybody in the band but Nicky. And that's for whatever reasons. That's his choice. That's his choosing. And you know what? Great. Awesome. Sorry, dude. Whatever. I don't regret anything. I'm just trying to do my best. Like I said, I'm writing new music. I'm coming to Australia. The fact that people still want me to come and play for them is a blessing. The fact that I'm still doing new music and people are downloading it and streaming it and excited about when the CD and the vinyl comes out is a blessing. The book is a blessing. And I'm just moving forward, man. So I don't even think about any of that stuff, to be honest with you. And for those of you who are making notes and going to comment on this later, he asked me the question. I answered it.
Oh, Dory, they come after me. I've seen the comments about, the stale ass interview or all of this sort of shit, mate. I mean, these fucking armchair creeps can go fuck themselves, excuse my language. And I've been pretty vocal about that. I mean, you're the creator. I'm a journo. I'm genuinely a journalist, by the way. So I'm just trying to get to the bottom of things and ask insightful questions that make the interview hopefully interesting. Yeah.
You just said it, like a lot of these armchair warriors that sit in their mom's basement at 45 years old.
Yeah.
And comment on things like, I can't even tell you, like, even just recently, like, I've gotten so much slack over the fact that I'm letting my hair grow out and go gray and whatever. And, it's funny, like, these fans will write to me and they're like, hey, dude, huge fan, but, like, what's up with the beard, bro? Or why are you wearing, like, dude, you need to dye your hair. Or like, why are you wearing that jacket? And I'm like, when did it become, like, first of all, I'm 63 years old. I think I've got these gray hairs. And it's like, I'm just, dude, seriously, it's just music. I'm not boxing Mike Tyson. Like, I could see if you're concerned about age or whatever. I'm not boxing Mike Tyson. I'm not playing rugby for the Rabbitohs. It's like, seriously, I'm just a guy that plays a guitar, sings some lyrics over a melody, and why is any of this relevant?
Yeah.
It's not.
Yeah, it's like, sorry guys, I'm just acting my age. Maybe you should do. That's it. Yeah. No, I'm with you. I know. I try not to look at the comments. I rarely get negative comments on my social feeds, my Scars and Guitars, Facebook or Instagram. I overwhelmingly, I couldn't even tell you the last time negative, but
paying attention to what other people say and what other people do will be the depth of anything that you want to do. Because you're never going to be able to please everybody all the time. So fuck it. Just do what you're going to do, be yourself, and have fun with it.
Mm-hmm. Look, I really, and look, I really appreciate all the time and the way you do answer the questions. You are one of the few that actually give me, and I remembered that from when listening back to the conversation we had the last time. You're giving me everything in terms of you are answering the question to the minutiae. But I'll make this my last question for you. I know you worked as a ghostwriter for the biography. That's cool. I'm a ghostwriter too. I actually write books as well. But was
brilliant.
Yeah, excellent. And look, I've got the book saved. I've downloaded it, but I'm waiting for some time off to actually get through it because I tend to read books in sort of 1 and 2 days. But did you find that writing the book was it a cathartic experience and potentially even about setting the record straight, given your rich and varied career?
To be honest, quite honest with you, I really had no desire to write a book. And it was Paul Miles, my Australian counterpart, that talked me into it. And he kind of brought something to my attention, which I had never even realized, recognized, understood, whatever. And he said, even though that you've been in the dirt, the book, he's like, largely you're, for a lack of a better term, this like enigma that, you do new music and you kind of pop out of the woodwork. You're like, hey, check out my new music. And then goodbye. It's like you disappear. And he said, I think that there's a lot of fans out there that would like to know what makes you tick. So we said, okay, great. Do the record or do the book. And as we were doing it, Paul was very easy to write with because he set it up almost like an interview like we're doing. And he really researched a lot of things, asked me about my childhood and my parents and my grandparents and just all this back history. And then we did, there was a draft. He sent it to me. I re-edited. I read the book and sent everything back. But it was funny, like there was moments in the book where, like talking about my son being born, my mom was, God rest her soul, my mom came out to be there when my son was born. And I looked at that very fondly and, missed my mom. But I had like these cool, happy feelings when I was talking about my mom or my son being born and these, getting the record deal with the Scream and joining Motley Crue, like that ecstatic, happy feeling that I had. And then there was other times where it was like going through the part of leaving Motley or going through divorces. God, it was so weird. Like literally reading the book and telling the story literally put me right back into that thing again. And I at times had a little bit of a stomach ache and I had to like walk away and go make a cup of tea. And the idea of the book is really not, again, to throw anybody under the bus. I don't think I'm telling anybody anything like is in regards to some of the bands that I've been in. I don't think I'm telling anybody anything newsworthy or news flash worthy or groundbreaking. What I'm doing though is I'm giving you an in-depth look of my perspective and how I felt and how I tried to process things when, for example, I joined this notoriously insane band called Motley Crue, and I watched them do certain things and how my brain processed everything. So again, it's not really about anybody else. It's just kind of my journey through my life, different things I was going through and how I processed everything and how did this affect me, my mental well-being or my ulcer or like whatever, you know what I mean? Yeah. And so I do think the one thread through the book though is, I've been through a lot. I've had a lot of highs, but I've had a lot of really low lows. And you just can't let it get to you. You just keep moving forward. And so I guess the word would be perseverance. That's the thing throughout the whole book.
Can't wait to read it. I'd love to catch up with you when you come down here. I'll do my very best to get to the show. It's hard with kids, to be honest with you.
Where's that, buddy?
Gold Coast, but Brisbane's the closest place to me. So I should be at the Brightside gig there, mate. So, I know you're going to be catching up with not hundreds, but maybe across the whole tour you will be tens of people at the Brisbane gig. But, mate, I'll be there, so it'll be lovely to be able to catch up and have a beer if it's at all possible.
Yeah, we'll have a VB and a Jameson at the end of the night.
Mate, that sounds awesome. Yeah. Looking forward to the shows, brother. Again, thanks so much for your candor. I appreciate it, okay? And you're right about the blabbermouth side of things and metal injection and all those bloody sites. What can we do? They pick up on these things, make money off both of us, and it's just the way of the world. It is what it is.
Yeah. I don't hate them for it because they, in other ways have been really cool to me. But, if they're talking about me, they're leaving some other poor bastard alone. So have at it.
Indeed. No worries. All right. Thanks very much again, brother. I really appreciate it.
All right, buddy. Thank you.
Thanks a lot. Catch ya. The Crab, ladies and gents, John Corabi. What an awesome fella. I've had one chat to him beforehand. I think I mentioned that throughout the chat. It's always a joy to look forward to a conversation with John Corabi because I've found the fella twice now to be an open book. He will answer questions where others won't. And yes, he's quite right. Blabbermouth will, well, who knows whether they're going to pick it up, but it is likely, isn't it? Before I let you go across to scarsandguitars.com and check out the book that I've written. It's an e-version. Click on the links. Go across to a marketplace of your choice and download a sample. You won't be disappointed because if you love hard rock, heavy metal, extreme metal, and everything in between, there's something in there for you. Cradle of Filth, Morbid Angel, Death, Carcass, The Eagles, Al Di Meola, even Al Anderson from Bob Marley and the Wailers. He's the fella that wrote that iconic lick in No Woman, No Cry. A member of Manowar, Ross the Boss, Ross Friedman, he also gets a Guernsey. So many others. Go across, as I say, and download a sample. I am sure you will not be disappointed. My name is Andrew Mackay-Smith, and I'm the host of the Scars and Guitars podcast. Until next time, it is a very goodbye for now.